by delegating, you make your team win, you give them more responsibility, you give them more purpose, you will stop being the bottleneck, you'll make yourself and your team way more valuable. And there's a famous saying in business, you only get paid for done. And if you are the bottleneck in your business, which many times as a business entrepreneur, I've been in the bottleneck in my business, our franchise partners have been the bottleneck of the business, you probably have been the bottleneck of your business as well, even if you're not the entrepreneur and business owner, but especially if you are. At the end of the day, you need to remove yourself as the bottleneck, and you actually need to empower your people. And what I've learned is it's not a chore. It's not laborious for you to basically be able to delegate information and delegate, tasks for you to do. Many times your team want to support you. Your team wants to be fulfilled. Your team wants to take ownership. So give them ownership. Stop messing around. Literally do right by your people. Open up the delegate and elevate mentality in your mind so that way you can get more things done. You can accomplish more things. And guess what? Everyone loves being on a winning team.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms. Here's your host, Bryce Henson.
Dale Carnegie, the infamous Dale Carnegie, has this quote: the average person puts in 25% of their energy into their work. The world takes their, the average person, I have a hard time reading. I can riff, I can dialogue, but reading is a struggle for me today. So I'm going to back to this quote one more time. So by Dale Carnegie, the average person puts in 25% of the energy into their work. The world takes its hat off to those who devote 50% energy, and the world stands on its head for those very few souls who give everything. And my friends, I give everything, and I want you to give everything too. That's what I want your legacy to be, because it's certainly going to be my legacy as well, because that's just, cut from that same cloth. I want to make a massive impact, and I want to do that in a very positive way, which is really what I'm pouring into you today. Taking a step back before I go into delegating and elevating, which is so important. It's an EOS terminology, but really delegation is a leadership and a management terminology. And this is really hard for entrepreneurs, especially people who are perfectionists and type A that want control of everything. And it was really, really hard for me. I'm so embarrassed to tell you this story. But back in 2012, when we first got our business off the ground, I was just telling you the story about my wife, when we just basically launched our business and enrolled or signed up and registered for our CRM and our POS system to run, our clients and the payment processing. If you can believe, I was such a control freak. I was so freaking scared of delegating anything. I would not even delegate the password login for our CRM system to my wife, Tatiana, who now is built out the whole damn thing, which is mind blowing to me at the time. But I think it was just insecurity and wanting that control and just not having, maturity and really strong leadership and development skills. Now I laugh because she's built out the system. She's the reason for the success at our location from a technology and operations perspective. Now, fast forward, I was so afraid to basically let go of the vine, if you will. Fast forward to 2023. I don't think I've actually looked at my CRM of my business in probably the last 18 months, and that's a good thing. And that's not to put down my team or to have to elevate me. That's really just to say my job is to lead, manage, and sell, and that's my focus as a good boss, which is what your focus is going to be as well. So at the end of the day, you have to delegate in order to make this engine work. So breaking this down, there is 5 steps to delegation. So we're going to go through those right now. Step number 1, list all the business-related activities in a journal for all your weekly tasks. Be patient, be detailed. Even if you're not detailed like me, take a deep breath and go through the list, because it's really important that you're inclusive. Step number 2, add overlooked activities. Okay, so you might not want to do this in one fell swoop. You might want to do this over a week basis so you can continue to add and brainstorm all the things that you execute on a daily activity basis, including your overlooked activities. Step number 3, when you have a completed list, put the list in 4 different quadrants. Quadrant number 1, love, something you love and you're great at. Quadrant number 2, something that you like and you're good at. Quadrant number 3, something you don't like but you're good at. And quadrant number 4, something you don't like and you're also not good at. Okay, so that's step number 3. Step number 4, and the step number 3, which we just went over, list all the activities into each of the 4 quadrants, which I'll explain here in a second. And then step number 5, if you cannot if you cannot accomplish everything, then you have a time capacity problem and you need to delegate. And I want to actually take a TV timeout here for a second and really showcase the value. This is not just a one and done exercise. I'm going to give you a very embarrassing story. While I consider myself a great delegator, even a year ago, I just had this biggest brain fart ever about the simplest task that I didn't delegate. But really my call to action for you to do is you need to be doing this on a quarterly basis. EOS breaks up the year into quarterly 90-day chunks. And the best way to describe this, there's an old adage that says, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer, one bite at a time. So the same true is, how do you run a business with strong execution? 1 quarter or 1 90-day interval at a time. So every 90 days, you need to be reassessing this because things change, priorities change. You'll have more tasks that need to be added, but also more tasks that need to be delegated as well. The story I want to tell you is while I gave you the really embarrassing humility-based story back in 2012 when I got our CRM and POS system off the ground, which I was so hesitant to even give the login credentials to Tatiana. Fast forward, I'm a delegating machine. But I went to a personal branding workshop and I was learning about marketing and strategies and creating content like I'm doing today. And I create all, content with the help of my media team, with the help of Pablo and Haley, who are in the studio, and Helen in the studio today. So I help create all this content, but I write the copy for it. But up until 2022, I was actually taking that content and physically I was the one publishing that to my account, which is nothing wrong with that. It's an important task that needs to happen, but it doesn't need to happen by me. And that is the call to action of you as your boss, as a leader. Not everything has to happen by you. It needs to happen in your organization, but not by you. So I had this big aha that I just need to basically create the content from a copy perspective, aggregate the media or the video, and then from there, send the content to my assistant, Emma is her name, Emma Maria. And then Emma Maria takes that content, she publishes it on Instagram, she publishes on Facebook, she publishes on LinkedIn. So she's actually the one actually doing the publishing. Very important task. Thank you so much, Emma. If you're watching, I appreciate you. But it's a task that does not need to be done by me. So I want to give you another example. Even with an experienced delegator, there's also times that things are missed. So it's very important on a quarterly basis you execute this. That all said, we talked about the 4 quadrants we're going to get to now. I'm going to get to those right now. So the 4 quadrants are quadrant number 1, does these tasks give you energy and you love them? Quadrant number 2, you can do with minimal effort. Quadrant number 3, does not give you joy, but you're actually good at. In quadrant number 4, not in your zone of genius and stay away from the avoid like the plague. And that was a little bit of an ad lib for me. That's not in the US book. But those are the 4 quadrants in terms of the breakdown. Now, giving you some insight, my zone of genius, as I talked about, is leading, is inspiring, is communication, is casting the vision. It's working with people. I love me some people. That is my zone of genius, and that's what fills my cup. What is not my zone of genius is anything attention to detail focused, anything analytical, anything data oriented, anything specifically that requires a lot of patience and attention. That is not me. Also, I think this does a great job and really some additional coaching and value to you. We shot an episode, I believe it's episode 92, which we do the disc profile breakdown, which we link up with a training company called Take Flight Learning, which is really taking the disc profile and integrated and using metaphors for birds, eagle, parrot, dove, owl. Highly encourage you to watch the episode, which was really not a surprise. And the reason I'm sharing with you because I'm a high eagle and I'm a secondary high parrot, okay? So typically, high eagle, high parrot like to lead, like to inspire, like to communicate, like to work with people, like to have strong vision. So actually, that's kind of factory installed to my personality. So my call to action for you is what are you naturally good at? Gravitate to that. On the flip side of the coin, and I showcased a little bit about Tatiana, my wife, she is the exact opposite personality style for me. She's a high dove, high owl. And owls are good at reading data. They're very strong attention to detail, and they're good at looking at analytical information. So no secret there. It makes a lot of sense from a personality perspective. Those are just naturally things ingrained in her and my personality. So highly encourage you to check out that episode because your personality is going to dictate a lot of things that you naturally are, gravitate to in the tasks that you would excel at or you don't excel at. to kind of finish out the latter parts of this chapter, I want to take a second to reiterate the point, and I touched on this earlier, but great bosses are not born, they are developed. Yes, you have to have the raw ingredients. Yes, you have to like working with people. Yes, you have to be attracted to business ownership and leadership and working with people and being your own boss and being your own entrepreneur. You have to have that in order to be a good boss, but at the end of the day, you don't have to have natural boss skills factory installed. In fact, most people don't. I certainly didn't as well. They are developed. So you just have to have the raw passion, if you will. And if you have the passion, you can learn the talent. And that's what's really what today's about. Additionally, and I never thought of this as a young leader, but I definitely know this to be true now. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but by delegating, you make your team win, you give them more responsibility, you give them more purpose, you will stop being the bottleneck, you'll make yourself and your team way more valuable. And there's a famous saying in business, you only get paid for done. And if you are the bottleneck in your business, which many times as a business entrepreneur, I've been the bottleneck in my business, our franchise partners have been the bottleneck of the business, you probably have been the bottleneck of your business as well, even if you're not the entrepreneur and business owner, but especially if you are. At the end of the day, you need to remove yourself as the bottleneck, and you actually need to empower your people. And what I've learned is it's not a chore. It's not laborious for you to basically be able to delegate information and delegate, tasks for you to do. Many times your team want to support you. Your team wants to be fulfilled. Your team wants to take ownership. So give them ownership. Stop messing around. Literally do right by your people. Open up the delegate and elevate mentality in your mind so that way you can get more things done. You can accomplish more things. And guess what? Everyone loves being on a winning team. Hey, my friend, hopefully you love that short teaser of the recent episode on the Fitness CEO podcast. To check out the full episode, it will be dropping shortly. But in the meantime, there's some other episodes around here that you need to see.